Okay, so you go and you move with the crowd. You're moving towards the Foshan. So you guys get there okay, and you're kind of setting up, and everyone's having a great time. This is one of the few free meals that you readily get to enjoy in your free time. Normally, when you go to the Foshan, you end up working for your meal. You'll go in there for, lunch and dinner, and wait tables or clean plates or do any sort of menial task that helps out the owner of the business and kind of keeps things running for him. And in exchange, he gives you a meal. But especially after like an Aurelian victory, this place is not only packed with fans and friends and other members of your orders, but everything is pretty free and flowing. So you kind of find your way towards a table with Omar and Zag. Omar is double fisting a very strong sweet cider, as he tends to do. And Zag himself has a pretty frosty mug of ale. So you're at the party. How does Maolog party down?
All right. Well, if we're gonna party, I'm gonna assume at the monastery we don't get a heck of a lot of meat. It doesn't seem like we have anything against it, so I'm gonna make sure I get something, maybe like a leg of lamb if that's available, and then I'll also get. I'll get a mug of the same ale that Zag has.
Okay, cool. So you get, there's pretty much every kind of food that you would want in the world kind of around you. There's definitely meat. You kind of grab an assortment of all of the different, cuts of pig and cow that you can get your hand on. There's steaks and pork and stuff like that. And you get your hands on a nice big brewski. Now, is Maolog the kind of guy who would drink to excess in this situation? It is a celebration. It is a party. I can tell you right now that some of not the older members of your order, but there are definitely some who by the time you got there and settled in, just immediately started slamming them down and is already looking a little tipsy. What are you going to do drink-wise? Are you just good with the one meal, or?
I think so. I think Maolog would look to Aurelian for the kind of decorum that he should have.
Sure.
So I would say, what is Aurelian currently doing? And that is the sort of thing that Maolog would emulate.
So you glance across the dining room and check out what Aurelian's up to. He is kind of at this table of honor where him and sort of the senior members of your order are kind of all on sort of a straight table, a very long table, with Aurelian immediately in the center. There is lots of food laid out and drinks laid out, and you can tell that some of the senior member of the orders are definitely getting into it. However, Aurelian is way too busy with greeting fans and other members of the order and taking on well-wishers to actually enjoy anything himself.
Okay. I would stick with probably just the one ale then, so I can keep an eye out and keep watching him.
Okay. So the party's rolling on, and it's been a few hours of you kind of sipping your ale, and maybe you kind of had it refilled at the halfway point, still being conservative, and enjoying the food, and the other members of your order. Some are definitely on the drunker side of things, but otherwise, the party is definitely still in full swing, but still pretty tame. Is there anything you want to do while you're here? Other members of the order you want to meet, or things you want to ask your dudes?
I mean, I can probably meet all of them. Is there anyone here at the party that I normally wouldn't be able to speak with? One of the top people?
I will say that you've kind of been keeping your eye, a dutiful student, you've kind of been keeping your eye on Aurelian. And at this moment, quite the interesting vision sort of crosses your way. The city that you're in is a melting pot of different races and peoples. The elves are constantly bringing ships in and out of port and trading, or looking to be hired out as mercenaries. There's the occasional dwarf. Humans and halflings are very prevalent. A good mixing of the races. But sitting now at Aurelian's side is a dwarf you've never quite recognized. You don't quite recognize. And he's in some pretty stunning clothing. He's in this dark black leather. It's a deep black leather that you've never quite seen before, and it's accented with this deep red inlay. He looks to be a bit of an older dwarf. His hair is white and tied back into a ponytail, and he seems to have Aurelian's full attention at the moment, at least. But he's somebody you've never seen before in your 20 some odd years at the order.
Okay. Then I will ask, what I'm assuming is Omar and Zag are still sitting next to me, and I'll ask them, do either of you guys recognize the dwarf talking to Aurelian?
Zag kind of, squints. He's a little guy, and he's been keeping up with you in the drinks, but he is like half your size, so he's deep in it. And he just kind of, he's like, which one? There's like 3 of them over there. And he kind of goes back to his ale, and Omar is still like absolutely shoving his face full of food, and as he has been all night, and he just sort of shrugs. You know that these two guys, Zag is very new to the order, and Omar's been around just as much as you, so they may not be any different in their knowledge than you would be.
Okay. Is there a master maybe someone who I have a decent rapport with, who I could ask if they know this dwarf?
All of the most senior members are up at the table, but there is kind of like a preceding line of people who are moving into that area to sort of like greet Aurelian and meet him and, wish him well for, and, a good victory in his battle. So it wouldn't be like uncouth for you to go and approach him at this moment, as everyone else is.
Okay. It would be uncouth for me to approach Aurelian?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm thinking, would I really want to just approach him? Yeah, you know what? Let's go ahead. Let's go congratulate Aurelian on his victory and let him know that I believe I have something special coming for him.
Okay, cool. So as you approach, his attention is primarily kept on the dwarf. Like, you're kind of like in line with a group of people, and there are people, coming in and saying a few things to him, and some people are getting a little more attention than others, but for the most part, it's a casual like, oh, hello, hey, thanks, great, maybe a firm handshake, and they move on. But as soon as Aurelian kind of spots you further down the line, he motions you forward and it says, "Oh, Maolog, did you see that battle there today? Were you impressed by my feat?"
Master, that was absolutely wonderful. I've never seen anyone or anything stop movement in midair either. How long have you been holding on to that one?
Well, my student, never make a predictable move. It's one of our tenets. I think you may have a thing or two to learn still in your young age, my young student. How about tomorrow, you and my good friend Dedan here head down to the Colosseum ourselves, and I teach you a thing or two about the way of our order. How does that sound, Denan? And the dwarf kind of just does a bit of an approving nod, and then Aurelian kind of looks to you.
Master, that sounds absolutely wonderful. I would be honored.
Fantastic. We'll leave first thing in the morning after breakfast. We must go with all of our strength, of course, and I'll have a hearty sleep and a meal in the morning, I think, to recover my strength. And so he kind of he sort of gives you the approving nod that lets you know, like, you're dismissed, but not in like a getaway sort of thing. It's like an approving, like, good work sort of thing.
Okay. Then I'll take my leave.
Cool. So are you going to return to your table, or do you want to cruise around? Like at this point, like, the party's still going on for sure, but you do notice that there are some people who are kind of leaving.
Okay. So I know that I've got to wake up early the next morning, and I want to be as impressive as possible for Master Sun. So I am going to go talk to Omar and Zag and let them know that I'm going to be taking off, and see if they want to come with me or if they're still enjoying themselves.
All right. So as you approach the table, the scene that you arrive to is quite different from what how you left them. Omar and Zag are both, like, not obviously, but like to you noticeably glaring at one particular table in the restaurant, sort of off towards the back.
Okay. What's happening there?
Are you asking them, or are you trying to observe yourself?
I'm trying to observe myself. I'm assuming I have, at this point, especially given their state of, what's the word I'm looking for? The state of inebriation. I want to get as much info for myself before I ask them.
All right. They are glaring at a table, and as you kind of look over into the group, why don't you give me a perception check?
All right.
Actually, we'll make this interesting. How about an investigation check? Because you're specifically trying to notice something out there in the crowd.
Okay.
We'll give it a little variety. That's a crit fail. So you are, you see that your friends are like, just they're looking out towards something, and like you kind of go to look towards that direction, and you trip over a barmaid who has like just this massive plate of food in her hands, and you trip over her and roll on the ground, she with you, and sort of the food splatters everywhere. And that's enough to kind of spook out Omar and Zag, who immediately go. Omar goes to help you, and Zag goes and helps the barmaid. And, she gets herself collected and gets the food that fell onto the floor and sort of, goes off in a huff. But Omar and Zag kind of, surround you, and Omar's like, "Oh, you've had quite a bit to drink, huh, there, Maolog?"
Actually, I haven't had much. I was looking at where you guys were looking and trying to figure out what's happening over there. Could you tell me what you guys were glaring at?
Oh, yeah, it's those undying guys over there trying to crash our party. I saw that douche or Darduke, who just showed up with two of his cronies, and they're off in the corner. We're just keeping an eye on them so they don't make any trouble.
Okay. That seems like a decent enough idea. We probably don't want to start anything, though, so we should just keep an eye on them at a distance.
Yeah, unfortunately for you, trouble has found its way to you, because as you kind of dust yourself off and get up, you notice that Darduke and two of his cronies have positioned themselves on the other side of the table. Now, you know Darduke. He is sort of in your same stature with the Order of the Undying. He's a relatively new addition to your group, or to their group, rather. He has been kind of traveling between orders, trying to find the place where he can be most successful, but you know that, like, he's kind of obnoxious. He's very cocky, and very hot-headed when it comes to being the best and being challenged. So he kind of stands, looming over the table and looking at you, sort of picking up yourself on the floor, and he goes, "Wow, you Hoonie boys really don't know how to handle your beer. You had a little bit too much there, Maolog?"
And let's see. How old is Darduke, and has he competed in the...
Not old enough to compete. Your age.
Okay. Well, Darduke, I've had just enough to drink considering the victory that we had today.
Yeah, your master's pretty good, but man, I can't say much for your order here if this is what we're going to have to be competing against soon. And he kind of like motions towards Zag and Omar, like very, very unimpressed. And he kind of cracks his neck a little bit, and he's like, how about we do a little show of strength here? You know, we've had our honor to a bit sullied today. I think we should have our opportunity to redeem ourselves a bit. What do you say? Now, I should tell you, there is a tradition among sort of the lower members of the orders not to get into full-on spars, but it is polite battles of strength or acrobatic, like dexterity, basically. You respectfully meet, you grapple, and then the first to gain an advantage over the other gets a point, and it's like a best 2 out of 3 sort of scenario. Not frowned upon at all. Kind of a sport for the older people to enjoy, as the younger members of the organization can kind of get their fire out of their bellies and not be pent up waiting to get into the Coliseum. And almost in time, you start hearing like hoots and roots from the crowd as they sort of very quickly begin closing in on the 3 or the 6 of you, the 3 from the Undying and you and your 2 friends. So you have been challenged to a spar.
Okay. Can I size them up?
You would only be squaring off against Darduke.
Okay. Can I size up Darduke?
Yeah. What are you looking for?
I'm looking to see whether or not he can match me in my acrobatic and dexterous feats.
You can definitely tell. Actually, why don't you give me a insight check? Just like leveraging your knowledge against how you feel he would be. So you got a 9. With a 9, you can definitely tell that he is strong, but you're just not sure how quick he is. But that's kind of the base assessment that you kind of get. It's becoming very loud, and like it seems that regardless of whether you actually want to or not, this is kind of happening.
This fight is happening. Okay, and then in that case, I'll respond with, "You better be careful," or "I'd be wary if I were you. Omar doesn't like the taste of sore losers."
And he responds with just like this super loud neck crack, and he goes down into the stance. So the stance is similar to what you saw in the Colosseum. The two of you are going to lock wrists in the center of the room and attempt to gain, leverage one over the other. So the room sort of clears out. People are moving tables and chairs, and the two of you meet and match arms. Now, I will give you, so you're going to be rolling 3 checks of either your choice, strength or dexterity, against his choices of the like. And we'll see who wins. So the first, I'm going to need you to do a saving throw. I think it's a saving throw. We're going to do a saving throw. No, actually, so we're going to do a check.
Okay,
yep, so round 1.
Let's do dexterity.
Oh, so you crit failed, and Darjuk rolled a 22. So almost immediately, like maybe you haven't sparred in quite some time, but it almost seemed, with the excitement of the crowd and everybody getting riled up, he catches you by a little bit of surprise, and he just pulls your wrists straight down, and you face plant directly into the floor. The crowd kind of like, hushes a little bit, but you can very clearly hear Darduk's 2 goons in the background as they snicker and sneer. But that was the first round. You unfortunately lost. No damage taken, but a little bit of damage to your pride. You set up and square off again.
Okay. Again.
Ooh. So this time, Darduk attempts to do sort of a similar maneuver, but attempts to put a little bit of a swing on it. You do manage to catch him unawares and get the up on it. So you rolled a dexterity. How are you going to best him? Like what maneuver are you trying to do?
We've got we've got locked wrists. Yep. So I'm going to flip my wrist inside, grab his own wrist, and then run towards him, bending his arm backward, and then kicking in his stabilizing ankle until he falls.
So you do this kind of quick maneuver where you flip his wrists, catching him unaware as he's trying to pull down, and you manage to get a leg under his. And his feet kick out and his butt hits the ground, and just the explosion from the crowd is like deafening. He's just going like he very quickly gets himself up and brushes himself off, but otherwise he's ready to square off again. So he kind of cracks his neck and he's like, "Yeah, that was a good one. I'll give you that one, but we'll see how we do in the last one here." And so you square off one more time.
Okay.
Whew. So he rolled an 11. You got a 15. Give me your finisher. How are you ending him?
Okay. So I grab his wrist again with my right, and I pull forward this time so that he stumbles slightly and his forward leg pulls out. I then cross his arm so that it goes across my body, and now we're open chest to chest. I dive down, grab the leg that has gone forward and that he now has all of his weight on. I grab it at the knee and I pull up while standing up.
So you do this like, he kind of tries to like, he's gonna try to bear claw you out of the air because he sees that you're kind of dipping down a little bit after you've initially broken from like his initial grip. But his leg just comes straight out from under him and he crashes just completely flat out onto the ground. The room has like exploded in just the most deafening cheers. And you are like just beset by this, this group of your order members and other fans, and they're lifting you up, and like Omar and Zag are kind of like right there with you partying, and everybody's having a great time. You see Darduk, kind of wordless with his two other cronies sort of move off and leave the bar, but you're victorious in your spar with Darduk.
Yes. Excellent.
So the crowd kind of like comes down to a pitch, and you see Aurelian from across the room. He's sort of towards the back of the group, and he's looking at you with this approving nod, and Denon's there with him. He's mostly expressionless, but not unimpressed in his look. But some of the elders are approaching you from your group, and are coming over with beers and with food, and they're going to try to get you to revel it up a little bit with them. They want to party. They're excited. They've already been, honored today with the win of their master, but then when, this young upstart comes in and starts, trying to challenge them, even one of their mid-range members is even able to win. So they're just on cloud nine right now.
Okay. I would like to grab a mug of ale from whoever, one of the masters handing it to me. I want to stand up on a table, and then I want to like throw the mug, not throw it, but like hoist the mug into the air, and then I want to yell, "If you don't have faith, why are you even here?" And then I want to drink the ale, jump off the table.
The crowd goes fucking... actually, shit. I'm gonna make you roll for this. Roll me a performance.
Shit. Oh, good enough.
You rolled a 7. Actually, hold on. Roll again. I'm gonna give you advantage on this because you've already got the group in your thing. You rolled a 5. Man, you're throwing some nasty dice tonight. So the crowd really can't hear you, but like they're pumped anyway. So like the sentiment of "this was great" has come across, but no one can quite hear you. But they're pumped. You jump off the table and you land pretty okay. It's a pretty simple jump, but everyone's going back, and the party is like almost reignited. Are you going to stay and sort of party it up with everybody, or are you going to peace out?
I want to peace out because I still want to do... I'm far more interested in the training directly with the master tomorrow.